everyone, and welcome to Drive to Win. I'm Justin Bell, your host, and once again, very excited to be here at the Wynn Las Vegas in the beautiful SiriusXM studios. Well, my guest this week is Gunter Steiner. He is a man that I love having on the show, mainly for all his wonderful opinions about the world of Formula One and racing drivers in general. But of course, we should have been out in the Middle East right now doing either the Bahrain or the Saudi race, but for obvious reasons, they've been cancelled. So we are able to get some really good guests on the show and dig into the mechanisms of Formula One, because everybody has been incredibly busy. But so have I, actually. Well, they might not have been racing. I was actually racing last Friday at the Heritage Invitational in Charlotte. I got to drive a 1976 Gen 2 Camaro. I learnt you don't say Camaro when you're in front of NASCAR drivers. Anyway, I was out there with Jeff Gordon and Bill Elliott. It was quite extraordinary, and Tommy Kendall. And it was an amazing thing. I was leading my class until I blew the gearbox up. But that is probably why I should have retired in the first place. But it was great fun to get behind the wheel, and it did actually kick in some of my thought processes on what it's like for a Formula One driver not to get behind the wheel as much as they used to. It's all on sims, and I tell you, there is nothing in the sim world that compares to holding onto a steering wheel with almost 600 horsepower in that old car. Anyway, 1976, it was pretty wild to drive. But that's what I've been doing. Well, the Formula One is on this slightly enforced hiatus. It's not a hiatus from the work. Unlike the summer break, they are absolutely allowed to go full speed ahead on all things preparation, and from the last race to the next race in Miami. I mean, the level of analysis they'll be getting into, I can't wait to talk to Gunter about this. That amount of data that they get every race, especially with the new power units and all that malarkey, has meant that, I mean, some of the team principals have said, even though we have hundreds of engineers, they literally haven't had time to go through all the streams of data that we have, but now they have, and it allows the teams to get, I mean, they have such resources, but now they're able to really take the time to dig into the optimal way to approach the rest of the season. And for the drivers, I think some of them thought they were just going to head off to their yachts and the beach, but they've been pretty busy too. So they are out there. I mean, I know a lot of sim work going on, a lot of media work, and I know the physical training side of things, it's allowing them after what was a very short winter break to really be able to get on top. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton was at Coachella with Kim Kardashian. That's a different type of preparation. But a good example of a team that really needed it this break was Williams, of course. 9th in the championship with just 2 points. I mean, it's a disastrous start to the season. And I mean, I actually made in my notes so much promise early on. No, so much verbal promise at the end of last year, and it hasn't come to fruition. So James Vowles is saying they needed every minute to review that data. They needed more pit crew practices. Basically, they will have been flat out at the factory to get themselves ready for Miami. And I'm sure, I mean, it's almost, they're too far behind to catch up too much right now. But I'm sure the break for them and nearly every other team has been most welcome. Maybe Mercedes are the only ones that wish it's a bit like a pace car. It's a bit like a safety car when you're out in the lead. You don't want the safety car to come out when you're in the lead, but you do when you're in second. And that's what this break probably means for Mercedes, although they equally will have been working just as hard on getting themselves ready for the next race. A celebration of heritage, craftsmanship, and innovation, Concours at Wynn Las Vegas brings car enthusiasts from around the world to revel in automotive excellence, right against the dynamic backdrop of the Strip. Well, this year's event will take place from October 29th through November 1st, and for more information regarding tickets and room packages, just visit lasvegasconcours.com. That's lasvegasconcours.com. So much news to keep us on our toes, but we're going to get into that with Gunter Steiner. You know, he was, as you know, the big star of Drive to Survive. He put the F in Formula One while he was team principal for Haas. And now he's making waves in the world of MotoGP. It's really fun to follow along as CEO of Tech3 MotoGP team. Want to talk to him a bit about that. So let's get him in. Well, Gunter, great to see you. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. All good, and thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no, well, I'm glad. I know I had a scheduling issue before, but you're safely on the ground and you're here. I wanted just to say, first of all, how are you enjoying MotoGP? Because I was thinking there must be so many similarities, but so many differences. What's the positive difference between the world of two wheels and four?
But before we go to that one, I want to go back at the starting of your show, So you're talking about Lewis and Kim Kardashian, I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know my way around. I'm sure you were out at Coachella as well. Were you hanging out with them so you know this exactly what they were doing?
Do you know what? It's so funny. My invitation must have got lost. I was, I could have, I would have.
No. I'm sure you had something more important to do.
I did.
I mean, I know you. You were dancing at some other party. Oh yeah, man, yeah. No, back to the serious thing. Back to the serious question. Yeah. It's in the end, as you say, it's racing. Racing 2 wheels, 4 wheels is motorsport. So, but it's going a little bit for me back in times. I mean, the atmosphere is a little bit more relaxed than F1, but it's very competitive. And what I'm learning, I'm still learning how much effort these riders put in there. Yeah, I was not aware of it. It's one of the things which amazed me most, because in car racing, obviously going out there with the car to practice, it's not easy. It's a lot of effort, costs a lot of money. These guys, when they have a race, when they're not racing, a lot of the time they're actually on a race bike on a circuit, just doing laps and getting better and better and training, to be fit and all that stuff. So quite amazed by that one, because I was not used to that one anymore. In car racing, it's always let's go to the simulator, but obviously the physical aspect on simulator is not the same as being in a race car. But these bike riders, they are on a race bike almost every day when they're not racing.
Whoa. What I can't believe is, you look at a Formula One car and you can imagine it's got a size, it's got dimensions with all that technology. But when you look at a MotoGP bike, it's so small, but it's so compact. And yet you have levels of technology in there, the same as they do in a Formula One car, right? Has it blown you away? Is there anything you can tell us that you didn't know those bikes had that you're pretty impressed with?
Yeah, I don't know, but everything they've got, this ride height system which they use in acceleration. They lower the bike in the rear, and it needs to be all mechanical. It cannot be electronic. That's forbidden by regulation. So it's quite tricky what these guys are doing. And also at the start they lower the bike to get off the line better, and also the aerodynamics as much as you think. And I think 7-8 years ago in bike racing there was no aerodynamics involved in it. And all of a sudden, there is a lot of aerodynamics in these bikes, and they do a lot of testing. So, but as you say, I think the good thing is it's small, the bike. So obviously what you can do, you're constrained by the size of the bike, So, but in the little areas you can do something. They're very sophisticated machines.
Yeah. One last question. A bike ride, for a car driver to transfer over to bikes is almost impossible unless they started there. But MotoGP riders that have tried to test, whether, in a Formula One car or a sports car, they are really bloody good. And can you see why they have an easier transition to 4 wheels than the other way around?
Yeah, but because I think for 4 wheels to 2 is just like the difference is so it is so different that you cannot adapt. But a bike rider going to a car, I wouldn't say it's easier, but he knows the lines, and you know that you have been, or you are a race car driver sometimes still. The lines on the racetrack, they are pretty good at that one, and they go in the car and they have got a good feeling. Obviously, they normally do it after their bike career, and to be really good, they're getting too old as well. When you start driving race cars competitively when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, that's a little bit too late. But they still have good results. Look at Valentino. He still drives a lot. I mean, Mick Doohan did a lot of car racing, and they were in their own right successful.
Yeah. Anyway, fun. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Which leads me to, do you think you'd be enjoying leading a Formula One team right now with these new regulations? I was thinking about it the other day. You must be looking at it going, ooh, this would be a bit tough.
Yeah, it is difficult to find the right balance. Obviously, the regulations are there, and some of it is good, and some of it needs to be better. I call it like this. I wouldn't say it's bad, but I think anybody saying it's perfect in the moment, I wouldn't believe anybody trying to say that, but what I believe in is that Formula One will sort it out. I know how much, and as you said, there will be people now working really hard in this break, which was not in the unplanned break. Basically, they will use that time to get around what is not working so perfect in the moment. Trying to find solutions with the FIA, with FOM, all the teams working together to find solution. But it is a big job. Normally, you would say, "Oh, it's a nice break in here." Nobody's got a break in the moment in F1. Everybody's working harder than ever, even if they're not going racing, just to fix the issues which are there now.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it right. Formula One will always overcome through its fast-paced technology and the way the research and the brilliance of the minds. They will always overcome the issues. Do you remember when they went to groove tires? Everyone's like, this is going to be ridiculous. Slow the cars down for like a week. Every time there's an obstacle, they overcome it, which is really is that the magic of Formula One?
I would say it is, and Formula One has got two things. It has got good engineers, bright minds, and shitloads of money.
Yeah.
And the money and the companies invest money. They are not throwing it at for fun because in the normal world you invest money and you need to see a return. The return in Formula One is being competitive and winning. So that for the people or the companies invest so much money to make it better, So you've got these bright people, you've got money, and that is a very good starting point to sort problems out in life.
If we had that at home, it would make my problems better, right? I mean,
this would help us all, having bright minds around and lots of money,
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
That's funny. So as you watch these first three races, what are the key factors about these races that have stood out to you?
I mean, the key factor for me is like how the young drivers adapted to this. I mean, you see all the young drivers, if you look at it, they adapted better than the seasoned drivers. I mean, think about it, and we were all amazed, but I think it has to do with the technology. They adjusted up quicker and better to new technologies because they are fresher. They don't have many bad habits yet, which they have to change. But in competition-wise, what stands out of me, Mercedes, they have done a good job again. Is it unexpected? No, not really. Everybody expected that to happen. And Ferrari is good as well. So they, again, that stayed as it was. The two strongest teams, they will be always strong, But I was also amazed about how good Audi developed their engine and Red Bull, because we cannot underestimate how difficult it is to develop your first power unit in a sport so complex as Formula One, and all the other ones having an advantage over you by doing it a long time. So I was amazed how good of a job Audi and Red Bull did on the PU side. And obviously outside in racing, it's a little bit, we need to get used to that overtaking now. It's done more, I say, with tactics and smartness than who is braver. I was almost going to say a word I shouldn't say on your show, who has got the bigger, what. But it's like one of these things. We will get used to it, and I think it will go back to where it was before.
Yes, you brought up some great points there. I want to dig into the first one on the young drivers and the sims, because it's like, when your iPhone doesn't work, you ask your teenage kids, right, how to solve something. And when you've got a problem with any technology, you ask someone young. And even though we feel we're pretty good at it, I'm sure like you, the pace of learning and the plasticity of the minds of these young drivers, I know an Alonso and a Lewis has the experience, but with this new engine management, with the power of harvesting and just the amount of data they have to crunch in their head on the fly while they're driving, I really do think it's giving the young guys a leg up as they're head-to-head with these older guys. I mean, I think you're so right on that. And I'm sure the driver engineers, the people on the pit wall are noticing that with their young drivers.
Absolutely, but we also have to go back to, when the Verstappen and that era of people came in. We always said these are the guys which grew up playing on the PlayStation, and they now adapt more to the cars with the complicated steering wheels and all that stuff. This is the next iteration of these guys. These guys are already, now I call them old. They're obviously not old because I'm a lot older than them, but I don't want to make them older than they actually are. But it's the next generation. It's just everything is evolving. And when the Max and his generation came in, they were called the PlayStation drivers. They can use it. And this is the next generation of drivers which can use this technology just so much better because they grew up just with more technology.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that the case in point is Mercedes? As you just said, it was not unexpected with the PU. They're doing so well. But I look at George and I just feel for him because he's like, finally he's in that, he's out of the shadow of Lewis. He's won races last year and he was so sneaky the way he did it, consistent. And now his young protege, almost the teammate, is just blindingly fast. But do you think there'll be a moment, Gunter, where obviously George's experience in certain scenarios will overcome Kimi's blindingly fast, naive speed?
I would say so, but it will not be easy for George because obviously, and now Kimi having won races as well, that doesn't, how it is confidence as well. For me, going into the season, George was the absolute favorite, even before testing, because it was the moment of George Russell. But then what happened now with these cars is Kimi is just like, he has no old habits. While George has to get rid of some habits. He drove the old car for quite a long time, and you're not talking only about the PU with the EV power and all that stuff. It's also the aerodynamics are completely different. You need to adapt. And Kimi has, it's for him, it's much easier. He hasn't got a lot to go back to. For him, everything is new and he doesn't have to get rid of anything. He doesn't need to put effort in to lose some habits. He just can go and drive the car while the other ones have to just get away from the ground effect. The ground effect is not there anymore. And I think as a race car driver, if you have driven ground effect cars for five years, it is not that you can change from one day to the next and say, oh, this is now different, I just adapt to it. You always fall back to some habits.
Yeah. What would you, Toto so well. He's such a strong fatherly figure in that team, and he's developed George with a lot of belief. Just a little insight into, as the team principal, when you have two drivers, just what is that management like? Because, you're always your father, your advisor, the strong hand of discipline. How do you think he's having to manage this?
I don't think he has to do a lot of management with George. George stands on his own 2 feet. Obviously, I think Toto is treating them equally. He's very fair with them because, as you said, George came out through the Mercedes ranks. Kimi came up to the Mercedes ranks. So, obviously, with Toto, with Kimi, I think Toto still thinks back when he didn't get Verstappen at the time. And this is now a little bit of revenge for him. I got the next superstar. So, but I think Toto is above that to favor one or the other. For him, the most important thing is that the team wins. He's that's what Toto wants. Toto is there for Mercedes and Toto.
Toto's there for Mercedes and Toto. Boy, you just look at the economics of his investment in the team, right, man? That is wild. When you see it on social media. Yeah, he's a billionaire from Formula One. That's a nice situation, isn't it? Wow.
Normally, a lot of billionaires went to millionaires in Formula One. He did it the other way around, Yeah. So good for him, Fair play, good job, He's good.
Was that your plan? How did that go?
My one didn't work out. It wasn't mine, So otherwise, if I would have been Toto starting off as a millionaire, maybe I would have achieved it. But I wasn't a millionaire, so.
No, tough goes. Hey, so listen, the big news this week is obviously all the shakeups at Red Bull. And, with GP saying he's going to leave. But talk about that. What were your first thoughts? I'll let you talk first because I have some. But when you heard that Max Verstappen's full-time championship winning race engineer is already posted his departure to McLaren, what does that mean?
I think, as you will see in Formula One, everything is cyclical. Everything goes around. And I think there is the cycle now that Red Bull had were so good for so long time. And some people want something new. Some people see, their value is highest now. If Red Bull in the moment, they are not, they are still good. They are still third or fourth, or I would say fourth strongest team there. So it's not bad, but they are not winning everything anymore. And obviously, the value of these people is there when they are winning or when they are doing good. If these guys are not leaving now, maybe they have to wait until it comes back to Red Bull that they win again. So and I think if one starts to do that, a lot of people follow, and every time the team is weakened, then goes backward, and more people leave. And but I think it's just one of these things. It happens all in life. Nothing is forever. All good things come to an end.
That's a nice way of looking at it, but it can't feel good if you're still on the Red Bull ship, right? Because you've lost those key people, and it must cause, for the first time in as long as we can remember, obviously the last few years, the de facto top dog has been Red Bull, and you've lost these key people, Adrian Newey, and then, and there's talk about Max. It destabilizes a team, and that back at the factory, it's all about a positive mindset and a belief that you can win. And now you've got this destabilization. Did Red Bull management take their eye off the ball, do you think, to let these people go? Or is there no stopping them when the offer comes through?
I think it's very difficult to stop, but then it started. I think it started 2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago. The success wasn't there anymore. The domination was not there. They obviously, Mr. Mateschitz unfortunately passed away, so there was a big leadership missing. And the company had to find itself as a company, and the race team is just part of a huge company, Red Bull. So I think it's a combination of things, and then obviously they didn't win anymore, so the criticism was out for Christian that he didn't do a good job. Everybody got nervous, and people saw opportunities, like Adrian wasn't happy there anymore. Jonathan Wheatley left. There is quite a few people which left, so as I said, it happens, and now what I'm sure what Laurent is focusing on, because I think Laurent is a very good guy, but he will need some time to fix it again. He cannot fix it in 6 months. What has happened in the last 24 months? He's not a magician. So if they give Laurent enough time, he will fix it, bring in his own people, try to find again young talent. Which want to work at Red Bull and make it successful again, but it will take some time. They cannot expect that they will be back as the dominator or the dominating team in the next year or two.
Yeah, I was just thinking that there must have been a very intense conversation in the motorhome, in a bar at Max's house, on his yacht, I don't know, when he and GP talked about this, right? Because that relationship between a driver and his engineer, especially a successful one, is like a marriage in so many ways. He would have had to have Max's blessing.
I wouldn't say blessing, but I think Max is grown up enough that if JP explains to him that he has got a good opportunity which he needs to take, I think Max is fair enough to say, hey buddy, you helped me a lot in my career. Now you have to look after yours. And he was fine. Obviously, I'm not saying that Max was happy that he's leaving. But again, Max is now grown up enough to say, I don't want to hinder you to do what you need to do for your life, because my career will be finishing at some stage, and I will not look after you after that one. And Max can stop working when he stops driving F1 cars. I think Giampiero needs to keep on working.
Yeah. Yeah, Max has a different economic structure, right?
Exactly. Yeah, there's a little bit. Yeah, just a little.
Just a little. So it does show, though, that the McLaren management, we know Zach is a master deal maker, correct? And with Andrea Stella, he's got a strong management team there. It's a big win to get, obviously, Giampiero to go over there. But what do you think it's going to be like all through this season and next season when you know you're going to be leaving? How do you start to minimize the knowledge over at Red Bull and the insight that GP has before he leaves to go to McLaren to start racing 3 months later? I think it's difficult if you're an accounting firm, let alone a racing driver. So think about that, Gunter. How is that going to be?
I think he will be out of Red Bull pretty soon, GP, and maybe can even start earlier at McLaren, but they are not keeping him around. And obviously, it's a motivation factor as well. If you know you go somewhere else, it's always difficult. Obviously, you want to do a good job, but is your heart there 100%? Maybe only 99, and sometimes that's not good enough in Formula One, especially in the position they are now. So they will find the best way forward for them and then decide what they do with GP. But it's just one of the things. But as you say, McLaren, again, they are thinking long term, and it's very smart because James Courtney is going there from Red Bull as well. Very good guy, and they have got a very strong team in individuals, and they are experienced people they are getting, but they are still young enough to have the drive to do it. This is not people which look for retirement. No, they still want to go racing and win. So very, very smart. But again, what I said before, McLaren was winning the last 2 years. And where you want to work if you're successful? In the winning team. And that is how you attract this big talent, That is where they want to be in future. So you see your own team is not the dominating team anymore. Where do I want to go? Or to the best team, given the opportunity, there where I go. And that chance I take, they didn't go to a small team. These guys, they went to the team which was best the last 2 years.
Yeah, that is such a cutting-edge part of Formula One. The drivers want to be with that team. The engineers want to be with that team. The sponsors want to be with that team. Yet, as we know, you so articulately said, Formula One is cyclical. All sport is cyclical. Williams at the back, they were the dominant team for a decade back in the day. So every team has had its moment in the sun. It just shows that long-term planning is such a big part of it. Just one last question about Red Bull and Max. He seems to absolutely love, rather like you said the MotoGP drivers do, he just loves driving. He loves racing. The others are on their yachts. He goes and does a GT3 race. Could you see him just walking away?
No, I think for him just leaving, I don't see that coming. I think he's thinking it, but then I don't think if he has to flick the switch, he will not do it, because he knows he's good. He's the best still, in my opinion, out there in the moment in F1. Why would he leave? He's having, it's a tough life in the moment because he's not winning, but he's not last. I mean, in his life, he's struggling. But a lot of other guys, which are struggling a lot more, would like to be Max Verstappen in the moment in that car, So you said before the Williams, I mean, I think Carlos for sure would rather be in a Red Bull than in a Williams in the moment. So, is he leaving? No, he's staying still around. And maybe he's looking around of his next opportunity in F1 because, as well, we have to think he was just in one team his whole career. Maybe it's time to change, to go to another team to show who, because a lot of people said, Max won just because he was always in the dominating team. I don't think that is true. He was in a dominating team, but the last 2 years he didn't have the best car and he still won races. So I think if he does something, he's looking, where can I go to be a winner again? In which car, in which team is best for me?
And what would you look at from a team point of view for him? Where his personality would fit?
That is the biggest thing. It's like, I have no answer to that one, because I think his personality fits at Red Bull. But if he goes somewhere, for sure, Mercedes. But Mercedes, in the moment, we have to go through that one. Doesn't need him really, huh?
Yeah,
they've got two very good drivers, one and upcoming superstar. So why would they have a Max Verstappen for the amount he costs? McLaren, I think McLaren, they've got a good team together with Lando and Oscar. So maybe it's no space there. Maybe one of them moves on to somewhere else. I mean, is he going to replace maybe Lewis at Ferrari? I mean, everybody wants to drive a Ferrari. I don't know how Max feels about that one, but that would be, I think that would get closer to it if Lewis stops in 1 or 2 years, that Max goes there, because Lewis will not be there for how long ever. Then the other thing would be Aston Martin. If Aston Martin gets their act together, I think they will be strong. When Honda, we all know Honda can make an engine. They've shown it with Red Bull, won a lot of championships not so long ago, and for sure there will be a place for him. And he worked with Adrian before. Adrian was the guy which designed the cars where he was world champion. So maybe that's his best option, to wait to see until Aston Martin sorted their out.
Yeah, and I do think that when you have an icon like Schumacher or Senna and Max, his teammate is a very integral part of that dynamic. I cannot imagine Oscar Piastri with Max Verstappen. I think they would fight. And I mean, Oscar's a pit bull, right? And I don't think he would. There's no papaya rules in the Max Verstappen world, and I don't, there's barely any in Oscar's world. So that's the kind of driver lineup that would be a disaster. But anyway, we'll see, right? There's only one man knows, and that is Max Verstappen.
Exactly, and only time will tell.
Yeah, we sound like a coffee cup, you and I.
Exactly. Yeah.
Only time will tell what we're going to do. So, I mean, I know you've had a lot to do with Ollie Behrman in the past, and I actually have him on the show next week, which I'm excited about. But when you saw his accident in Japan, and for me, Gunter, I've been waiting for that accident, I don't know, for a long time to happen, especially with these regulations. And it just shows the fragility of a car backing off in front of you through a flat-out right-hand corner. And it was a big accident that he walked away from. Give me your analysis of that and how the FIA are right now supposedly resolving and coming up with a better sort of structure.
I don't know what they're doing, but I think the obvious thing to do for me would be, that when you're charging, the lights come on the back of the cars. You can see that they are charging, that they are slow. It mainly tells you that one. I think they could introduce something that if you're going, if you're off the pace, because it could be some other problem. It doesn't need to be only that your battery is empty. It could be the battery broken or the electric motor broken. It's very easy for an F1 car to map it for the engineers, that you say that you're a lot slower than you should be, that the light comes on, that the guy or the driver behind you sees that you are slower than you should be, and then Ollie would have seen them lights on and maybe would have lifted himself, because he could get past him anyway, because he knows the car in front is slow, and because he obviously tried, I need to get him, not realizing that the car was completely, that Colapinto was completely off pace. Yeah.
I think it's remarkable, even the way the choreography in qualifying. Right? I mean, I watch in MotoGP, I've been to a couple of the races, and the way they do qualifying, but they're so small, right? Their footprint, they can weave in and out like fish. It's difficult with a Formula One car. And someone said to me the other day, where a car slows down isn't a problem for the driver behind. You never know where they're going to brake. I said, since we did chariot racing, we've known where they're going to brake. This is just you could tuck in behind somewhere right till the braking point. This is introducing a whole new dynamic. It worries me in qualifying, Gunter, and I said it on last week's show. Watching a Formula One car on the limit is just sublime, right? It's just watching Charles Leclerc qualify a Formula One Ferrari on the limit. You can see it, you can feel it, and I don't feel it or see it in today's qualifying. How are they going to rectify that?
I think technology will get better. I mean, obviously, you just need to compare it with the qualifying of last year and this year. You can see the difference. If you overlay two cars there, you can see the difference where it is. It's pretty simple to see. As I said in the beginning of this, I think there will be ways found that the energy is there all the time, or you need to reduce the energy, that what is there you can use all the time. I don't know if I made myself. If I explained that well enough, because sometimes it's better to have less power for the complete duration than peak power and then a lot of less power afterwards, because with that you avoid what is happening now. If you could have a very similar power all over the lap, then you would have real qualifying again, as you quoted.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to head to. That's all, because in the race, I actually quite enjoy. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't call it overtaking. I called it passing. It was like swapping. I called it swapping. Yeah, swap. But now, I think we get used to it. But anyway, I want to jump forward to your old team, Haas. I mean, they've had a very successful start to the year. Currently fourth in the championship. The constructors, Alpine are fifth. They're actually ahead of Red Bull with 18 points. I mean, it's crazy. Alpine only scored at 22 points the whole of last season. Just gives you a kind of relativity on that. What is it about these new regulations that is allowing these midfield teams to be closer in so many ways to the front of the field, when all we're talking about is the huge resources of the top teams, the top four, and yet the midfield teams with far less resources have somehow managed to get closer to the front? Why is that?
I think a big part is the power unit. Alpine changed to Mercedes engines. Haas has got the Ferrari engines, very solid base. And some of the teams like Aston Martin, they've got the Honda engine, which is not working perfect yet. Red Bull developed their own PU where they have to catch up work to do, even if I think they did a good job. And Audi obviously has got their own engine now. So I would say they fell a little bit back, and that is the biggest difference. But nevertheless, I think a lot of other people like Williams have Mercedes engines, and they did not a good job like Alpine did, because they've got the same engine. So fair play. These people just did a good job. But it's... the distance to the lead teams is pretty big, so and to catch that time up will be very difficult.
Yeah, I was thinking, because there are obviously so many smart people on every team has talented people, but I wondered if they were maybe going with a more simplistic approach with the resources they have, which sometimes simple is better than being overcomplicated. And I just thought it's really, you're seeing, again, young drivers who are adapting to the situation so well and the dynamics of the racing. I think it's brought the midfield into a very entertaining thing to watch. And that is good for the sport, and good. You were there with Haas. You know how important it is to have the spotlight on you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's good for the sport if teams in the midfield can be there and about, So, but as you said, I wouldn't say the guys in the midfield teams, they wouldn't say intentionally we try to be simpler. They are simple automatically because, as you rightly said, they've got less resources. They cannot be as complex. And sometimes, as you said, it just works for them. It's saying, instead of overthinking it, just let's get it done and see what's coming out and go from there. And it worked, So, it's very interesting to see that most of the teams, there is nobody really, we could debate that Cadillac is a little bit behind, but they are new. But all the other ones, except obviously Aston Martin, and we know they've got a big issue with it, and they will sort that issue, obviously, because they've got the resources, they've got the people behind them. It's just, how long does it take them to sort it? They will get it sorted. That is not, will it be 6 months? Will it be 18 months? I don't know that one. I don't know that answer, but they will get it sorted. And but all the other ones, now what it is, who can always update and get better from race to race? That is now the difficult bit, because now the teams see the other cars and they say, hey, let's try to do this. Let's analyze what was done on the last race, especially with the power management and all that good stuff. So now the chase for the updates is on. And again, the big teams in theory should have an advantage because they just have got more resources and people.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. But you bring up Adrian Newey and Aston Martin. Obviously one of the quirky highlights of almost every Drive to Survive episode was you having to pick up the phone and saying, hello, Gene. You think about picking up the phone saying, hello, Lawrence Stroll. Thanks for all your hundreds of millions of dollars. We're at the back of the field. I bet there's some intense pressure going on there. I don't envy that. Because he's done everything right in Lawrence Stroll's mind, right? The money, the talent, the driver, he's put together this team, and it shows how difficult Formula One is. But What do you think about the pressure inside there? And just why did it go so wrong in the preparation for this year?
No, as you said, I mean, Lawrence, what you cannot blame him. He has put what he said he's going to do, he did. It just was not successful. I think that the only, I mean, as you say, he built up the new facility in Silverstone, Lawrence, which is fantastic, got the best people in. I think he has not got the patience which is needed in Formula One. If it doesn't work in 6 or 12 months, he changes. And the cycle is not 12 months in Formula One. It's longer than that. You need to wait until something works. They had that year with what was it called, the pink Mercedes, where they were successful. We know why, obviously. But on the other side, I think he's doing a lot of things right. But I think where he's lacking is his patience. He needs to be patient. I mean, and I'm sure now he cannot push Honda. Honda will take the time it takes to get this right, and he will have no say in it. In that one, because Honda is managing that one. Obviously, can put pressure on and tell them to hurry up, but they will do it at their pace, as they did when they came back last time. When they were at McLaren first, McLaren wasn't patient enough. Red Bull comes in, picks up the pieces, and wins the year after the championship. So, but it must be difficult. I mean, obviously, especially also in Lawrence's shoes. I mean, the guy put so much money and effort in, and he works really hard on it. And his success, I mean, in the moment, this is not only not speaking about having success, this is actually not good for him, for the company, being where they are.
No, and you think about being in Fernando's position behind the wheel with his career and his experience, and sometimes you watch Gunter, don't you, after a race, and you can just see it's physical. You can see his disappointment and the way the team are feeling. When Newey was named as principal, that was just for a very short period of time. That was really a knee-jerk reaction to a position they needed to fill, obviously. But he's not a team principal, and it took his eye off the engineering. You weren't surprised when they made it a big news, the media did, he's stepping down. But he should never really have stepped up, should he?
No, and I think if you would ask Adrian here, I would say, I don't know why I did this, or why I agreed to this, or why I don't know how it happened, if he wanted to be team principal or not. But obviously, that is not where his strength is. He's very good in what he's doing, which is designing cars. I mean, obviously not the Aston Martin in the moment, but he will fix it, So, but for him going in there was just like, why the hell that? I think it was an Adrian thing, or I need to be team principal, not knowing what the team principal actually, or what it means being team principal involves, and therefore it didn't last long, Again, it shows that you should always put the people where their strength is, never over-promote them.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the timeline. I think for Aston Martin, it will be about Lawrence Stroll's patience with Honda, and you're right. I'm sure he doesn't have the same patience with his investment. But Formula One, that timeline, you say you don't know if it's 6 months or 18 months, but in a year's time, at the end of this season, the amount of data, the amount of knowledge will be a billion times more knowledgeable about how to run these cars. We saw it in the last regulation phase cycle, that the delta between the front and the back tightens as you go through the years. You anticipate that'll happen even in this season? The gap will get closer to the front, and especially for Aston?
Yes, I mean, obviously, because Aston cannot go backward, so
yeah,
that's one of the reasons. Exactly, yeah. There's not a lot back. No, they will catch up, and they see what the other teams are doing on the car wise, and that's what it always is. People look at other people, analyze what other people are doing, and you just copy a lot of it, or try to do the same. So that will happen a lot. But in the case of Aston Martin, you also need to, because on the engine side, you cannot look what other people is doing. You can learn and you can catch up. The good thing is with the engine, the other teams cannot develop their power, because or you can do very little, to be honest. You can do something, but it's not like the car. You can develop the car every day of the year. There is no limitation. So you can catch up with that one. But you're shooting on a moving target, because all the other teams, they're not standing still waiting until you catch up. So you have to catch up to do and to gain on the other ones, So it's difficult. A lot of people said, once we're in the season, we will catch up. yeah, you will catch up, but the other ones will get faster as well. We will catch up what the team did until 2 races ago, but they have moved on from that position. So always very difficult to catch up again. And that's for what I said before. Now is to see who can best make upgrades or make the car go faster. How big the gaps, how big steps they can make.
Yeah, I'm looking at Miami now thinking, well, we need a Ouija board and a crystal ball, right? To even predict how it's going to be, who's going to have risen up and made the improvements for Miami. But we're coming to such a different track, a twisty, tight street track. We've seen McLaren move very fast there. Obviously, Max in his day have been fast there. We have no way of knowing what it's going to be like as we go into qualifying and we see who truly has speed. But what are your predictions for the Miami Grand Prix? Mercedes still on top? Ferrari closer? What do you think?
I think Mercedes still on top, and McLaren maybe gets a little bit closer to Mercedes. I think McLaren will overtake Ferrari in Miami. I think McLaren now figured out the power unit better, because obviously when you get a new power unit like McLaren from Mercedes, some of the work you have to do yourself, like the mapping and all that. Not the mapping of the engine, the how you use the EV power. So it's you need to figure out, and they had time to figure that one out because the car was fast in the end, the McLaren, the last race. So I think it will be Mercedes on top and McLaren behind them.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see as we go to a street track how the energy management actually exists, right? Without those long straights and fast sweeping corners. Will it suit this regulations better to be on a street track for us, our point of view as a spectacle?
I think so. I think so. It will be. And again, there was a month of development. A lot of talking was going on, and I don't know the outcome. FIA, FOM, and the teams, how they manage it. It will get better. It will be better. I think Miami will be quite a big step of what we saw in Suzuka. But let's see. But for sure, it suits this hybrid technology better than the long straights we had in some of the circuits before this year.
Yeah, well, either way, it'll be fun. What's the next race for you? Where do you go next?
The next MotoGP race is in Jerez, but I cannot do that for personal reasons. So my next one will be Le Mans I think it's in 4 weeks. Yeah, 4 weeks. Because also MotoGP had a race postponed. The Qatar race is postponed to the end of the year, hopefully. It's not cancelled, but there's no race until Jerez in 2 weeks.
Okay, well, it'll be so fun. Hey, well, listen, thank you so much for joining the show. I always enjoy it. And if you come to Vegas back in November, we'd love to have you sitting right here. It makes for a fun show. Thank you so much, Gunter.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining the show. Obviously, next week we have Ollie Behrman on. That'll be really good fun. And then we head into Miami. And remember, last year, McLaren won with Piastri. Who knows what it's going to be like this year? We're looking forward to seeing the positive effects of this enforced break. So thank you very much for watching. Stay in touch on social. Thank you to The Wynn and SiriusXM. I'll see you soon.